number one story of the week, Evan, comes from the Jets. They go to London, and it's not good. Aaron Rodgers, uncharacteristically, I think, throws 3 interceptions, takes 3 sacks, and the Jets lose to Brian Flores' defense and the Vikings 23-17. Okay, Vikings are a good team. You lost. Get home on Tuesday, this morning, out of the stone blue, apparently, reportedly, Woody Johnson walks into Rob Saleh's office and fires him. Nathaniel Hackett is staying on as offensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich is the new interim head coach. Evan, what was your reaction when you heard that the Jets had decided to pull the plug on Robert Saleh?
I think it was surprising, but really then when it happened, it wasn't really that surprising when you think about it. The Jets wound up going 20-36 under Robert Saleh. The rumor sort of being spread by Mike Tannenbaum, the former longtime Jets GM, and I believe he was the Dolphins GM for a while as well, was that Woody Johnson, the Jets owner, who used to be, and don't quote me on this, I believe he was the UN ambassador to England.
I believe that's correct.
Under Trump, I believe.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, and he was really embarrassed in front of all of his billionaire friends that the Jets lost the game in London. So someone had to fall on the sword. That's Robert Saleh. I don't think he did a particularly great job as the Jets coach, but their defenses were consistently good, and that's his side of the ball, obviously. But, I mean, they have major problems on offense, too. It's just someone had to fall on the sword here.
I mean, hold on, Evan. I don't think the ambassador stuff is the real story here. The real story, I feel like, is Aaron Rodgers did not like Robert Saleh at all, and Aaron Rodgers runs this team now, which is why Alan Lazard is out there constantly, which is why they've done all kinds of things that maybe they wouldn't have done if it wasn't for Nathaniel Hackett is in there, who's a total donkey. Like, to me, it's Aaron Rodgers told Woody Johnson, hey, man, if you want to save this, we got to get rid of Robert Saleh. He just doesn't seem to like him. What do you think about that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't really know, and I don't even really care, honestly. I mean, at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers is like maybe a top 20 quarterback at this stage of his career.
Maybe.
Alan Lazard, by the way, leads the NFL in drops.
Yeah.
And is like a featured player in their offense.
Okay. I think a more important question is, will this change anything for the Jets? I don't see it really changing anything. Rob Saleh was the defensive-minded head coach. The defense was playing well. Offense is Nathaniel Hackett / Aaron Rodgers' thing. I don't think we're really going to see any changes. Sometimes when we see this surprise head coach thing, it's like, no, you were messing up this guy's playing time or whatever. I don't think that's going to happen here. Rob Saleh had nothing to do with the offense as far as I can tell. So, Evan, do you think there's any fallout here for us on the fantasy side from this?
No. That's why I said I don't. It's not really a big deal to me. Yeah. It's certainly a big deal to Jets fans and people that like to talk about things like that. But I mean that's not really what we talk about. So it doesn't. I don't really think it affects anything from our standpoint.
Okay, then let's go to the game here because I do think there's a couple interesting notes. Garrett Wilson finally got loose for a 13-catch, 101-yard, 1-touchdown line. However, it took 22 targets for Garrett Wilson to get there. Aaron Rodgers threw 54 times in this game, which is super uncharacteristic for Aaron Rodgers, who likes to play slow and methodical with this defense. So it struck me as a chance, if you want to get out from under Garrett Wilson and people don't realize exactly what happened here, again, they threw it 54 times. He got 22 targets. That's so unsustainable. And he still didn't even have that great of a game. This would be the time if you want to get out from under Garrett Wilson, you could. Evan, what do you think about that and any more Garrett Wilson thoughts?
I think it's fair. I mean, there's certainly no way that they can continue to drop Aaron Rodgers back at this kind of frequency because the guy's old, number one. Number two, he has taken an absolute beating over the last 2 weeks. He's taken 25 quarterback hits over the last 2 weeks and 8 sacks. And that's not sustainable. He was grabbing at his knee during the game.
Yeah.
He came out with at least a low ankle sprain. They can't continue to play that way.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Agreed. And that's not great for Garrett Wilson. There's also heavy Devontae Adams rumors also. And so that would be another reason if you wanted to get out from under Garrett Wilson, perhaps now is the time. The other story that I wanted to hit on was the Braylon Brees Hall versus Braylon Allen stuff. So Brees is really struggling to the point where people are killing him online, and he's having Sauce Gardner's out here defending him. I just look at the usage. Last 4 weeks, carries plus targets, Brees has 71 over the last 4 weeks. Braylon Allen has 41. So Brees is around 59% of the running back opportunities here, and he's losing goal line stuff to Braylon Allen. Even as someone who liked Braylon Allen, I did not see this coming. I did not see Braylon Allen playing this much. I don't necessarily blame Hackett and the Jets, though. It's not like Brees has been good. Evan, what's your worry meter at right now on Brees Hall stuff?
I mean, I just think that Braylon Allen has earned it. I understand, like, I had Brees Hall as high as anyone in my preseason fantasy rankings, and he's been a disappointment. But at the end of the day, like, if we're just going to deal with reality, like, Braylon Allen has earned it. So I don't expect it to change, and I expect the distribution to continue to be like this. Braylon Allen is built to carry the football in the red zone. Like, he's 235, 240 pounds, and they're going to continue to use both of those guys, and I don't think that we should expect that to change. This is one of the things that happens in fantasy. Like, we're a little bit more than a month in, and like, we have to readjust our expectations. And I think we need to readjust our expectations for Brees Hall and, league wide. Like, they're think Bijan Robinson, we're going to talk about him.
Yeah.
We have to readjust our expectations.
I think what can change going forward for Brees Hall is just be more efficient. As a rookie, Brees Hall averaged 5.8 yards per carry. Last year, he was at 4.5. He's at 3.0 yards per carry this year. Also, his yards per target is way down, even though he's playing with Aaron Rodgers instead of Zach Wilson, a bunch of stiffs. It's just, I think he's going to find more efficiency here going forward soon. So I don't want to necessarily sell low and punt it off on Brees Hall right now. Let's go to Jacksonville. So home game against a really, really bad Colts defense that was also decimated by injury here. Trevor Lawrence performs 28 of 34, 371 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 bad interception, but they get a win, a wild win, 37-34 over Flacco. The big story from the game was Tank Bigsby continuing to make his move on Travis Etienne. Now, I want to be clear that Etienne's been dealing with a shoulder injury for the last 2 weeks. They said after the game that the reason they didn't go back to more Etienne in the second half was because of the shoulder. I think that could just be an excuse. Travis Etienne has not been good. Tank Bigsby, based on almost any underlying metric, has been one of the best running backs in the entire league this year. Evan, what do you think about Tank Bigsby versus Travis Etienne going forward?
I think that Tank Bigsby is the better runner. As long as he can avoid the mistakes that plagued him as a rookie, I think that he is a flat out a better runner than Travis Etienne. We saw that on Sunday. He had some insane runs. He made a big play in the passing game. Again, we could go back to it. Tank Bigsby was one of my favorite sleepers entering last season. The Jaguars wanted to have him a big role. He lost a fumble in the preseason finale. He lost another one in the regular season opener, and they buried him.
Yeah.
And then when he came back, he lost his confidence. He clearly showed up in great shape in training camp this year. He looks incredible out there. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think that he should lead the Jaguars in carries the rest of the way, as long as he can avoid those mistakes.
Yeah. I don't think Travis Etienne's going away, right? Like, in this game, snaps were
right.
Travis Etienne 22, Tank Bigsby 23. Etienne ran 15 routes, Bigsby 8. Like, that could be what it's like going forward, shoulder injury or not. And obviously then Bigsby is viable, as is Etienne. I'm concerned they're going to be in like a full-blown, like, Zach Moss, Chase Brown type.
That's what I would expect. And Etienne has not played like super poorly or anything. He's at 4.4 yards per carry on the season. But Bigsby is at 8 yards per carry on the season. And he just brings like a different sort of feel out there. Like, he runs with legitimate power and long speed. And I think he's just one for one, a better runner than Travis Etienne.
I mean, Bigsby this year leads the all NFL backs in rush yards over expectation per attempt. Etienne is 18th. Bigsby's 3rd in PFF grades this year. Etienne is 55th. I mean, I could keep going, but Bigsby has certainly outplayed him. Other stuff from this game, I don't want to overreact, but it was just because they were playing the Colts at home, and everybody has been lighting up the Colts. But at least Trevor Lawrence showed he can have huge games. You get another huge Brian Thomas Jr. game. And also, Christian Kirk uncharacteristically had a 61-yard catch here. So it was good to see them get loose. It was just like one of the best possible matchups. So I don't want to overreact. Evan, how sticky do you think the Trevor Lawrence stuff is here going forward?
I think it was specific to the matchup. But I mean, there's no doubt that Brian Thomas is a needle moving talent. And I mean, that started to kind of shine through like late in the preseason and late in training camp. And that has become the reality. He goes 5 for 122 and a touchdown in this game. This was the ideal matchup. You want to start perimeter receivers whenever you possibly can against the Colts. This was the ideal matchup. But hey, we also want to see these guys crush the ideal matchups. That's what Brian Thomas did. Trevor Lawrence still only had 2 touchdown passes in this game, but he played really well. 371 yards, I believe. Yeah, 28 to 34. I mean, but that's what you're supposed to do against the Colts.
Yeah, and so they play the Bears next, and then the Patriots after that. It's going to be way tougher for T-Law to find ceilings in those matchups, which he's failed in so often. Last note I have on Jaguars is Evan Ingram actually seemed like he had a chance to play in this game. They decided not to play him, expecting Evan Ingram to be back here this week, sending Brenton Strange back to the bench. Number 3 story of this week comes out of Atlanta. This was an absolutely insane Thursday night game. Falcons somehow win in overtime on a walk-off Cardell Hodge 45-yard touchdown. In this game, Kirk Cousins, 36 years old off Achilles Kirk Cousins, breaks records by throwing for 509 yards and 4 touchdowns. I want to get to all that in a second, Evan, but the big story was, again, Bijan Robinson, even in overtime, even with all the chips down, losing snaps to Tyler Algier. Over the last 2 games, Bijan 94 snaps, Algier 52. Bijan 53 routes, Algier 28. But opportunities over the last 2 games, Bijan 26, Algier 19. So people are, I guess, panicked, regretting their Bijan pick right now, Evan. Algier has certainly played way more than I thought that he would. Thoughts on this backfield going forward?
Yeah, look, I think that Algier, and he didn't have a particularly good game in this one, but I do think that he has played to a level that he deserves it. I just think it's a really similar situation to Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, and I don't think that they're going to go away from this. You know, we're greedy, we're fantasy players. We want our guys to get all the touches. We just have to understand that's not the reality of this situation. It was wild, though, Kirk Cousins. I mean, there was nothing in weeks 1 through 4 that indicated that this was coming, but he went absolutely off. I still don't think he's moving that well in the pocket, but I mean, he was throwing laser beams the entire game. Really, really impressive performance. I mean, this is kind of, I think, you know, Leone was really high on the Falcons passing game throughout preseason training camp. This is what he envisioned. I mean, I don't know about 509 yards or whatever he threw for, but I mean, this is what he envisioned, was a super pass heavy offense. Maybe it just took us a month to get there, but that's what this was all about. I mean, this was a massive shootout on Thursday night, and Drake London got his, and freaking Darnell Mooney is balling out of control, and Kyle Pitts had 7 for 88.
Yeah. Everybody was alive, certainly for the Falcons there. Last note for me on the Bijan stuff is he had been on the injury report the last 2 weeks with shoulder and then hamstring issues. It was not something that actually had him on the final report. Like, he wasn't listed questionable or anything. He was always going to play, but he's at least been a little bit banged up. Now you get a long week for Bijan and then a game against the Panthers, which has just been giving it up to everyone. They have like no talent. So to me, this is the spot for Bijan to get going. We'll talk more about that on Friday night for sure. Number 4 story comes out of Minnesota. They played that game in London against the Jets. They're up 17-0 midway through the second quarter. Hang on for that 23-17 win. Big news here, though, was Aaron Jones hurts his hip midway through this game. Had to go an MRI. They're calling him week to week. Status is unclear for when they come out of their bye in week 7. I mean, Aaron Jones is 29. He'll be 30 actually in a couple months. That was one of the reasons that I thought Ty Chandler was one of the better late round running back picks I guess we'll see here on Aaron Jones. But yeah, Evan, any thoughts on that and any other Vikings stuff for you?
Um, I think this is the kind of the Sam Darnold that we have come to. I don't know about love or appreciate, but the Sam Darnold that we've known for many years. This was not his best game. Um, I think that Aaron Jones is like a legit difference maker, and you can't say that for every running back, but I think he's a legit needle mover in the Vikings offense. Ty Chandler has not had a very good season. He did have a 32-yard run called back on an illegal shift call on Justin Jefferson in this game, but Ty Chandler is really explosive, and if he were to get the opportunity, good offensive line, Hawkinson is I think he's coming back sooner rather than later. Addison has been playing pretty well, and obviously Justin Jefferson. Like it's a good environment for a running back.
Yeah, I mean, Ty Chandler absolutely has to be owned. You can look at what he did last year down the stretch as the starter. Vikings trust him and like him. So, yeah, and on the Hawkinson stuff, expecting him back week 8 or week 9, which I think is pretty exciting for the offense, anyone who needs tight end help, which is pretty much everyone. I know Sam Darnold didn't play well here. Still, I mean, that was against the Jets. I think people can forget how good this Jets defense and secondary is. After the bye in week 6, then the Vikings get Lions, Rams, Colts, Jaguars. I mean, my God, it doesn't get much easier than that for the Vikings coming up. So I'd be buying on Vikings guys where I could. Fifth story of the week comes from New England. So Patriots lose to the Tyler Huntley led Dolphins at home 15-10. Patriots are now 1-4. They're 31st in yards per play. It's time, man. I know a lot of people disagree with me. I know Thorman disagrees with me and a lot of other people. It's time. It's time for Drake May. I understand it's going to be ugly. I understand the offensive line sucks. He's going to take a ton of hits. He could get hurt. He's not going to play well. The way to learn anything in life is to play, man. I mean, Jaden Daniels came into the year with the NFL's worst offensive line. No weapons behind McLaurin. Caleb Williams' offensive line is awful. And I know what Evan's going to say, or everybody's going to say, is that this offensive line the Patriots have is so much worse than what Caleb or Jaden Daniels is dealing with. I just think you got to go to it. You think it's the right time for Drake May? And what do you think Patriots' outlook is with him going forward?
Oh, I'm the ultimate throw him in there and let him play and let him learn on the job. I'm the ultimate, like the only way you can really learn something. I mean, you can pick up things from watching someone else do it, absolutely, but the only way to really hone your craft and get good at anything is to just go do it. And I mean, shoot, I think they should have been playing him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, and also I think you need a real. Everyone points to Derek Carr as David Carr. I'm sorry, David Carr as the reason that you don't want to throw a quarterback out there with a bad supporting cast. Are there really that many other examples of that? That's like an outlier situation. I also think it's also possible that David Carr just wasn't it.
Yeah.
It's not like he came back, years later and got everything together and was some quality quarterback. Like I think that he probably just wasn't it. It wasn't because of the poor environment.
Yeah.
I also think that Drake May is so much more talented than Jacoby Brissett that all of a sudden in a couple weeks, he starts to get his legs underneath him, and Drake May, like, he's making the supporting cast look better because number one, he can run,
right?
He can get himself out of trouble. He's got a great arm. All of a sudden, we're talking about Jalen Polk, and we're talking about the offensive line doesn't look so bad anymore. That's what really talented quarterbacks do is they elevate their teammates. And I think that it's entirely possible that after, maybe he has a couple bad games out of the gate or whatever, but by midseason down the stretch, we're like, oh man, Drake May, should we start him in fantasy? I mean, I think that that's entirely possible.
I mean, if you have a bad offensive line, mobile quarterback's going to help. Let him escape the pressure. Let him get on them, run on the bootlegs. And yeah, I think the supporting cast is still so bad that I'm skeptical May is really going to have a fantasy impact. I'm skeptical that he can get Jalen Polk
Remember, he can run.
Yeah,
he's a really good runner.
Oh, he ran so much at North Carolina. I think I actually have it here. Yeah, over final 2 seasons at North Carolina, which was 26 games, Drake May ran 296 times for 1,147 yards and 16 touchdowns. So Yeah, I think May himself, I'd be more interested than Jalen Polk, but we did talk about Polk a little bit on the waiver wire show with Daigle. Hopefully, you guys check that out. If May starts this week, his first game will be home against the Texans. Certainly not an easy spot, but then he does get home against Jaguars the week after that. Last Patriots note I had was the Ramondre Stevenson benching situation. So you remember Ramondre Stevenson fumbled in 4 straight games to open the year. He was quote unquote benched, but still played 28 snaps in this game, had 16 opportunities. Thought it was one of his best games of the season, even though Antonio Gibson played a bunch. So I think water under the bridge for the most part now on Ramondre Stevenson fumble stuff.
I agree.
All right. Let's go to the NFC here. We'll go in alphabetical order. Start with the Arizona Cardinals. I thought a pretty stunning win for the Cardinals. I mean, 1 week after looking pathetic at home against the Commanders, Arizona goes into San Francisco and stages a comeback 24-23 win. And that's with Marvin Harrison, just 2 catches on 7 targets. Evan, what do you think of Cardinals' comeback win up in San Francisco?
Well, Kyler, I think it was on it was on the first series, breaks off a 50-yard touchdown run, and then didn't really do much after that. James Conner had a really nice second half. But if you want to talk about like what actually happened in the game, like the Cardinals defense just played better than expected, and we know that they are talent deficient. Okay, they're one of the least talented defenses in the league. However, Jonathan Gannon is like a really good defensive strategist, and we saw this last year. I mean, we knew that they were talent deficient last year, but they had like some nice runs at certain points during the season. And when you have a good coach, like you can maximize your talent, and that's what they did. I mean, they forced turnovers in this game. Jordan Mason had a fumble. Purdy had 2 picks. Like the story of the game was the Cardinals' defense.
Yeah. A couple more notes for me on the Cardinals. Trey McBride looked good, I thought, coming back from his concussion. He was also listed questionable with a rib injury, but I thought he looked pretty good. Had a touchdown go off his hands. Still caught 6 balls for 53 yards, team high 9 targets for Trey McBride. Still think he's in the mix with Bowers and some other guys to be fantasy's best tight end. And then, yeah, what Evan said about Kyler. I mean, this is why we play Kyler. 50-yard touchdown run, 83 rushing yards and a touchdown. It's just he's been so inconsistent. It's hard for me to get a handle on like when he's going to play well and when he's going to play poorly. Kyler, it doesn't seem to be matchup based really much at all.
I had a couple more notes. 0 snaps in this game for Trey Benson, who continues to come along pretty slowly as a guy who was a high draft pick, top 70 overall pick. He's not getting in there. The Cardinals lost Will Hernandez. Their stud guard was having a really good season, at least if you believe the PFF grades. That is something that could hurt. They lost him for the season to a knee injury. Zay Jones can come off suspension. Michael Wilson led the Cardinals in receiving in this game. We'll have to see. Will Zay Jones cut into the work of Michael Wilson or Greg Dortch? I think it would probably be more likely Greg Dortch. Greg Dortch really hasn't done anything this year.
Yeah. I thought towards the end of camp, even before the suspension, Zay Jones was trending to be the number 4, but it's not like they've gotten a lot out of Greg Dortch, like Evan has said. At Packers next for the Cardinals. Let's go to the Panthers. So Panthers go to Chicago with their alleged savior, Andy Dalton, and they lose to the Bears 36-10. I mean, it got so bad they had to put Bryce Young back in for mop-up duty. Just sad. Bright spot for the Panthers continues to be Chuba Hubbard. Had a 38-yard touchdown run here, averaged over 7 yards per carry, caught 4 balls. I still think the Panthers can be fun in the right matchup, but the suggestion that they're good now because they have Andy Dalton was always ridiculous. Evan, what do you think of Panthers' ugly loss in Chicago?
I mean, they just got outclassed, and this is a really tough defense to play against. Chicago's defense, we know that, and we're seeing and we'll talk about the Bears, but we're seeing them come along. Xavier Legette got hurt early in this game, and shoulder injury. Adam Thielen's already on IR. Jalen Coker jumped into the third receiver role, and undrafted free agent out of Holy Cross. I mean, that is a long shot right there. I don't know that this guy's going to make any kind of a fantasy impact, but he is fast, and he wound up leading him in receiving.
Yeah, I would say the only thing I would say is Legette claimed that he'll be ready for week 6. We know that players can be overly optimistic on their injuries, but Leggett did say he expects to be ready for week 6. Carolina has a really good, not really, it has a good matchups coming up. Falcons and Commanders the next 2 weeks for the Panthers. Let's go to those Bears. So thought this was clearly Caleb Williams' best game, right? And when you're home and you're facing the Panthers, you should have your best game. 20 of 29 for 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. One of the best spots he'll have all year, but still, again, good to see him actually do it. And he got the DJ Moore revenge. I mean, forget about winning the game. You got to get your revenge if you're DJ Moore. 105 yards and 2 touchdowns for him against his former team, the Panthers. Evan, what do you think of Caleb and the Bears breaking out here against the Panthers?
Yeah, I think that I think the tendency sometimes is to diminish accomplishments like this when you play defenses like Carolina's, but good offenses smash defenses like Carolina's, and the Bears smashed Carolina's defense. I'm not saying that the Bears are a good offense yet, but I do think that Caleb has gotten better every game, and that's exactly what you want to see out of him. And right now, nobody's talking about, oh, they should have kept Justin Fields. Justin Fields, by the way, did not have a good game on Sunday night. But that talk has quieted down, and this is what you want to see. I mean, you want to see him tear apart a bad defense.
The Bears over the last 2 weeks have gone to a 3 wide receiver base. They've ditched this Gerald Everett, Cole Kmet stuff. They've gone mostly to Kmet in 1 tight end sets. And then they're only playing 3 wide receivers for 2 weeks in a row. The only wide receivers who have run a route are DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and Keenan Allen. In this game, on 35 Caleb dropbacks, 34 for DJ Moore, 34 routes for Rome, 32 for Keenan. No other wide receivers ran a route. So that's like really valuable for stacking and for fantasy. Obviously, when the team gets super condensed. At running back, Khalil Herbert, 0 snaps again. Only DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson. And DeAndre Swift has really found his form lately. He got chumped at the goal line by Roschon Johnson twice, did DeAndre Swift in this game, but still goes over 100 total yards, 21 touches. He's been going off against, the Rams and the Panthers, but they get Jags, Commanders, Cardinals next, do the Bears. So really, really good schedule coming up for Swift, whose usage he's been playing really well. So yeah, feels good on DeAndre Swift right now.
Yeah, it does. 23 touches in back-to-back games.
Let's go to the Dallas Cowboys. This was the Sunday night game against the Steelers that was delayed due to the storm. Dak Prescott stages a 4th quarter comeback, game-winning touchdown pass on 4th down, 20 seconds left, tough throw, and tough catch, honestly, by Jalen Tolbert. I think the fantasy story at least, was Rico Dowdle breaking out, and then also in the first game without Brandon Cooks, Jalen Tolbert breaking out. So, Evan, what do you think of those guys and Dallas's narrow win over the Steelers Sunday night?
I mean, I think that it was a solid performance. I think that we saw that Rico Dowdle is starting to separate himself from Ezekiel Elliott, especially the way that Mike McCarthy has talked about that situation, like publicly, like just the way that he started to talk about Rico Dowdle is like Rico Dowdle is going to be the main guy going forward without question. And then Dak puts up 352 yards against the Steelers defense in Pittsburgh. This was a pretty promising effort from an offense that I think has been largely disappointing, uneven to this point.
Yeah. Just a little bit more on Jalen Tolbert, 787-1 overall. He ran 40 routes, though, on Dak's 45 dropbacks. I mean, Jalen Tolbert was someone who I liked as a deep sleeper, but then he started to get a lot of steam, and I kind of backed off him a little bit. But yeah, we talked about him a bunch on the waiver wire show. I definitely think that he should be owned here because, I mean, Brandon Cooks, this knee infection, he's on IR. We don't know exactly when Brandon Cooks is going to be back for the Cowboys.
Yeah, he's done. By the way, Jake Ferguson continues every single week.
Yeah,
to see consistent volume at one of the toughest fantasy position again.
For sure. Let's go to the Detroit Lions. Lions will come out of their bye in week 6 to face those Cowboys. Looks like a potential shootout on paper. Only note I had on the Lions, who were pretty healthy going into their bye. They've caught some of these trade rumors, like these wide receiver trade rumors. I've seen people speculate, oh, maybe the Lions should go get Amari Cooper or Devontae Adams or something like that. I don't think they necessarily need that, but I could see it happening. Anyways, Evan, any notes for you on Lions as they come out of their bye here against the Cowboys?
Yeah, I think that stems from just that they're like in like a potential Super Bowl window,
Yeah.
and so they should go get Devontae Adams. I mean, I get that. I don't think that he's going to end up in Detroit, but I understand that sentiment. The one note that I had is that Frank Ragnow, their stud starting center, who at one point I thought that there was concern that he was going to be out for the year with a pec tear, but it seems like he escaped with a pec strain only. He
Mm-hmm.
practiced on Monday,
Mm.
so he's got a chance to come back coming off the bye, and that's the nuts and bolts of the Lions' offense is their offensive line, and he's one of the best centers in the league.
Yep. Talk more about this game a ton on Friday as one of the most exciting games on the slate. Lions Cowboys. Packers. So the Packers go to LA, beat the Rams 24-19 without Romeo Doubs, without Christian Watson. Luke Musgrave was active, but he was real banged up, ended up playing 0 snaps. And it's Tucker Kraft who stars again. 4 catches, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns on 5 targets. He's up to 218 yards and 3 touchdowns on the season. Clearly, in every week, starter is Tucker Kraft. I mean, he's so far ahead of Musgrave, and clearly Packers love him. I thought it was interesting that they did not choose to expand Bo Melton's role. The routes were on 29 Jordan Love dropbacks, Jaden Reed 26, Dontavian Wicks 24, Malik Heath 21, Bo Melton down at 13. So good win given everything going on with the Packers for them on the road here. Evan, what do you think of their game against the Rams?
Yeah, sometimes I get overexcited about little sleeper dudes like Bo Melton, and I let my emotions get the best of me, and I want to apologize to the people. That was not a successful pull-up play. All right, Bo Melton, we're not going back there. He was the number 4 receiver for the Packers. The Packers in this game, it's like I felt like they kind of clearly game planned to attack the Rams, not with the pass, but with the run. And they had success doing that. Everybody got involved. Even Jaden Reed had 2 for 19. Josh Jacobs looked really strong. But that's why, and Dontavian Wicks, they missed some opportunities. People are all pissed about Dontavian Wicks. Why did I spend my fab on him? He's a really talented guy, and I think he's going to get it together. But Jordan Love had 15 completions in this game.
Yeah.
So only one guy in the passing game, maybe 2 in those kind of scenarios can have legit good games, and that happened to be Tucker Kraft, and Jaden Reed had an all right game, 4 for 78.
Wicks was open and led the team in targets. He just like his ball skills, and I hate to like do this to guys because I think drops are like such an overrated thing to look at. Earning targets is mostly all that matters, and he's been great at that. But man, Dontavian Wicks' ball skills look awful. Like he's open, the ball's around him, and he can't like go get it. I don't know. I hate to be a tape bro, but yeah, that's like the knock on him. But yeah, I'd still love to have Dontavian Wicks on my team.
He gets another good matchup this week against Arizona.
Yeah.
So he'll get more opportunities. He did lead the team in targets.
Yeah, 27% target share is just really strong. His catch rate is just like so low, though. It's so brutal. All right. Let's go to those Rams, Los Angeles Rams. Kyren and Stafford just out there trying to will this team to wins, but it's tough. No Puka, offensive line issues, no Cooper Kupp. They dropped to 1-4 home loss to those Packers. Big thing for me was the running back spot. Yes, Kyren continues to have arguably the best role in the NFL when we factor in red zone, goal line usage, overall usage. 23 more touches here. Kyren's on pace for 323 carries and 47 catches. I mean, it's wild. But the difference in this game at running back spot was we got proof of life from Blake Corum. 11 snaps, a season high, and they were meaningful snaps. Meanwhile, Ronnie Rivers, 0 offensive snaps, only special teams for the first time all season. So looks like a changing of the guard at the RB2 spot. And I think that's important because if something happened to Kyren, this spot is going to be super valuable. Evan, what do you think about the Blake Corum stuff and anything else on Rams?
Yeah, and I thought that Blake Corum looked rock solid with his opportunities. I think Kyren Williams has a little bit more burst, a little bit more juice, but you couldn't really tell them apart like that clearly. I think that Blake Corum looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
in the offense. And I think that if he was dropped, which he probably was, because he had 0 snaps in 3 of the Rams' first 4 games, I think that he's back to the point where you can put him at the on the end of your bench.
Yep.
Because Kyron is being worked
Yeah.
hard, man. And I think that the odds, if you were to just look at probability of him missing time at some point, they're probably pretty high.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And then he has a history of ankle injuries also, plus all
Yeah.
this workload for sure. Um, Good news is Cooper Kupp sounds like he'll be back after the week 6 bye. At least that's his target. Puka Nacua reportedly targeting week 9. So things are looking up for the Rams. It's just they're already 1-4. By the way, Jordan Whittington, who I thought played a really good game, he looked like he got banged up late with a shoulder issue also. But again, if Cooper Kupp does come back week 7, this is going to look way different when the team comes out of their bye. Let's go to the Saints. So they go into Arrowhead last night with high hopes. I mean, they were only a 5-point dog. Saints were not even close. And to make matters worse, Derek Carr sustained an oblique injury. Doesn't sound great. He looked like he was in a ton of pain. Jake Hayner had to finish the game. So a lot of bad vibes around the Saints right now, Evan, after such a hot start. What do you think of Saints last night in Arrowhead?
Well, I thought the Rashid Shaheed looked great again.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, look, one of the driving forces behind the Saints coming out for the season like gangbusters was so their offensive line was kicking ass, and we did not have high expectations for their offensive line entering the season. All of a sudden, they lose Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz. And I mean, they can't block for Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara, actually, I thought he looked really good on his touches, but he wasn't efficient in the box score. He had 11 for 26 as a rusher. He had to do a lot of work just to get those 26. Um, but yeah, I think that they're like major offensive line issues, and that is absolutely those are issues absolutely that a defense like Kansas City can exploit.
Yeah, I mean, they'll have easier matchups. The Chris Olave stuff, man, like he's getting outplayed by Rashid Shaheed, not just like in production, but underlying stuff. Shaheed just looks like the better player, the better receiver right now. And I like both of them. But man, I did not see this coming. Like Olave just getting chumped by Rashid Shaheed on the layup routes. That was the whole idea of Olave. Like, oh, new scheme. They're gonna get a bunch of layup routes. Shaheed's getting a lot of layup routes, And so, yeah, maybe I probably got too excited about the Saints start, and too excited about what Clint Kubiak was doing. And they're more of like a middle of the road offense at best without Derek Carr. It could be real bad though. So yeah.
For Olave, I actually think that he's looked pretty good, even though he, has had some really slow games. Obviously, this was slow. Number one, Steve Spagnuolo is a schemer, and I mean, he will take away guys, and so that's something to consider. Also, the cornerbacks for Kansas City are really good, and so that I think the defensive game plan was probably working against Chris Olave, and also just in a game where Derek Carr is going to throw for 165 yards. Like we need more production from the passing game as a whole
Yeah.
in order to fulfill expectations for multiple receivers. But you're right. I mean, I think Rashid Shaheed to this point has outplayed Chris Olave.
Yeah. A last note for me is Kendrick Miller was eligible to play in this game. They downgraded him to doubtful on, I guess it was Saturday. So I'm not sure
Yeah,
if he
like
had,
did he get hurt again?
I don't know if it was an aggravation or if they just decided that he wasn't ready to play yet.
It seems to me like he freaking got hurt again.
That would be really tilting because what I was going to
Yeah,
say is that they're going to kill Alvin Kamara if they keep using him this much, and Jamal Williams can't play. They actually need Kendrick Miller, but I don't know what the status is there. It's something to watch this week.
yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh God, here we go
Yeah.
again. I mean, Kendra Miller just cannot stay off the shelf. Dennis Allen's pissed at him. I'm starting to get pissed. This is there's something going on with Kendra Miller.
All right. Let's go to the Giants. So no one wants to hear it, man, but I'll say it. Daniel Jones has played 4 good, solid games in a row, including this game on the road across the country without Malik Neighbors. Danny Dimes leads the Giants in, I thought, pretty impressive fashion. I mean, he ran when it mattered. He got Darius Slayton off for 8-1, 22-1. Give some respect to Danny Dimes, Evan. What do you think of Giants win out there in Seattle?
Yeah, Darius Slayton, I've kind of always thought he was good. I know that he's another guy with ball skills issues at times, but I've always thought he could play, and they're always kind of like trying to get him, like remove him or play somebody ahead of him, or I don't know if there's something going on in the locker room with him or something like that. But I mean, when like he's had legit big games in his career, he can make big plays, he can absolutely outrun defensive backs. And so when he has a game like this, I mean, I didn't predict this, okay? I didn't predict him having this kind of a game, but I'm not surprised because the dude can play.
Yeah.
So that happened, and they should be getting Malik Neighbors back this week.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. Daniel Jones had some really nice runs in this game, and they play the Bengals next.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. The other big story from this game was the performance of Tyrone Tracy. So Devin Singletary seemed like he was close to playing, seemed like it was kind of a game time decision. They decided to hold him out. Eric Gray actually started this game and had the first few touches and looked good. Eric Gray fumbles, and next thing you know, Tyrone Tracy is out there going nuts. Now the narrative, Evan, is that Tyrone Tracy looks so good that he's going to cut into Devin Singletary's work significantly going forward. What do you think about that spot?
Well, he should. I mean, he should be the starter over Devin Singletary, I think. I mean, Devin Singletary, we know what he is. I think he's a good number 2 back in the league. I don't think that you want to build your running game around Devin Singletary. I think you might be able to do that with Tyrone Tracy, who had 18 for 129 against Seattle, and they didn't even really get him involved in the passing game. That's something that they can unlock with him.
Yeah, for sure.
They need juice at skill positions, and Darius Slayton brings that. Obviously, Neighbors brings that. Tyrone Tracy can bring that.
My only hesitation on saying that Tracy will or should usurp Devin Singletary is Daboll loves Singletary, right? Like Daboll brought Devin Singletary to the Giants, knew him from Buffalo, and yeah, that's his boy. I don't think he's just going to let him get chumped, but I do agree that we could see more of a timeshare here going forward.
Yeah, to be clear, when I said that, I meant like that's what I think should happen.
Right.
And that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What I think should happen does not matter at all. What Brian Daboll is going to do, that's what matters. And I agree with you on that standpoint that that's his boy. He's probably going to go back to Devin Singletary, and it's going to be frustrating.
Yeah, but it might not be for like the full amount. It could be like 60% Singletary, 40 Tracy or something like that going forward. I think maybe like 65-35 is what I would kind of think going forward. Let's go to the Eagles. Eagles had a bye in week 5. They'll come out of it on Sunday at 2-2 to host the Cleveland Browns. As expected, Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown will both be back here for this game. I think Lane Johnson will be back also. So Eagles, it was a good time for their bye. And now they face Browns, Giants, Bengals, Jaguars, Cowboys, Commanders, Rams. It is time for Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown to start going nuts. I don't see any reason why they won't going forward. Evan, any thoughts on Eagles coming out of their bye?
Sound like some good buy targets and trades, guys that have maybe started slow, dealt with injuries. Now their buys out of the way. And, going forward, they have a nice schedule. So that sound like some buy targets and trades.
Yep. Let's go to Seattle. So this was a bad loss for the Seahawks. Home to a Malik Neighbors-less Giants team. Seattle, though, again, for fantasy purposes, they're so throw heavy. And again, they struggled for play volume. It's just a recurring theme, 58 plays for them. But yeah, when they're so throw heavy and they have talented guys, they're going to be able to get into shootout type of games each and every week. I don't want to be too discouraged off of this loss here. Evan, what do you think of Seahawks game against the Giants?
Well, I think it was Sunday's show. We were talking about DK Metcalf and how awesome he had been and how bad Deonte Banks, the Giants' number 1 corner, had been. And I was just like, oh, man, just Metcalf's going to reach into his body and like snatch his soul. And that did not happen. Deonte Banks played a really good game against DK Metcalf. So shout out to Deonte Banks. He was clearly listening.
Yeah, great sign for me on Kenneth Walker. So they only had 7 running back carries this entire game, which again goes back to how throw heavy they are. and the play volume that they've been getting. So only 7 running back carries the entire game. But instead of just taking Kenneth Walker out because they were behind, they left him in for some series in the fourth quarter where they were trailing, playing hurry up. And Walker was in there catching a ton of passes. He ended up catching 7 passes. That's not something I normally could project or expect from Kenneth Walker. But the fact that they're willing to use him there in those situations, I thought was really encouraging. So still really like Kenneth Walker here. Let's go to the 49ers. So 49ers lose a stunner. They're up 23-10 and a half to the Cardinals and choke it off. Second half, Purdy couldn't do anything. Evan already gave a lot of credit to Cardinals defense. I get that, but still a concerning loss to me for the 49ers here. Evan, what do you think of their game against the Cardinals?
They've just been losing a lot of close games, games that are coin flip games.
Yeah.
And so people are going to be down on San Francisco. I think that they're going to be, people are talking about, they're missing Christian McCaffrey now. I mean, maybe a little bit, but I mean, they've still been able to run the ball with a lot of success without him. Breakout game for Ayuk. Ayuk had not gone over, he had not reached 50 yards in any of the first, 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
And then he goes 8 for 147 here. Another big game for George Kittle. Jawan Jennings has been moved back into where he only plays in 3 receiver 11 personnel, so we're not going to be able to use him anymore. Debo's came back. I think he played a lot. I did not look at the participation. Yeah, I did. He played a lot, but he just didn't have a big game.
Yeah, really big game coming up for the Niners on Thursday night. Evan's matchup for that is already up. Seahawks, 49ers, really big NFC West game on a short week there. Yeah, on the Ayuk stuff, I talked about it a little bit on the solo pod, but we talked about it on a bunch of shows. Like the vibes, I couldn't put any data on it, but the vibes were just, the pendulum has to swing back to Ayuk at some point. He has to get more work. And that's exactly what happened here. Yeah. Kittle's obviously a beast. And the other thing, listen, man, Jawan Jennings, he's out there being more of a nuisance than he has been previously. He out-targeted Debo Samuel in this game, did Jawan Jennings. So
Debo did play 82% of the snaps.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Last thing on 49ers. So Christian McCaffrey has already been ruled out for week 6 with his calf/Achilles issue. However, reportedly, quote unquote, mild encouragement last week as he did on-field work and his calf Achilles issue did not flare up. If progress continues, McCaffrey's targeting anywhere between week 7 and week 10 for his return. So fluid situation, but at least good news. Sounds like he got some workouts in last week and he felt good. So we'll see on CMC. Let's go to Tampa. So somehow Tampa loses that wild Thursday night football game at Atlanta. The Bucky Irving fumble late just absolutely killed them. I give credit to Todd Bowles for going up there right after the game and saying, mistakes happen. We got to defend, whatever. They gave up 509 passing yards to Kirk Cousins. That's how bad the Bucs defense was in this game. Offensively, they only got off 51 plays, despite the game going to overtime. Evan, what do you think of Bucs' performance on Thursday night's wild game against the Falcons?
Oh, man. Yeah, this was a rough one because I was on the Bucs in this one. I thought I had it, but that was a really, really bad fumble at the end. Oh, they did go right back to Bucky Irving on the very next series.
Yep.
So I thought that was promising for him. I didn't really have any big takeaways. Sterling Shepard, who I thought was a good sleeper, had one catch. It was a 4-yard touchdown, but one catch. He did not play a big role. He technically did. He played a lot, but that third receiver role in Tampa Bay has not translated to any kind of production to this point.
Yeah, and we spent a lot of time last week talking about the split between Rachaad White and Bucky Irving. In this game, it was Rachaad 10 carries, Bucky 9, Rachaad 17 routes, Bucky 11. I think that makes sense going forward. They're similar to Bigsby and ETN. They're going to play both these guys going forward. Last NFC team is the Washington football team, aka the Commanders. This was the toughest matchup that Jaden Daniels had faced in his NFL career against the Browns. And he was worse. He was only 14 out of 25. That was very low completion percentage for him, but still ran 11 times for 82 yards and got vertical. 66-yarder completion to Terry McLaurin, 41-yard completion to De'Ami Brown. Commanders roll again. They are now 4 Evan, what do you think of Jaden Daniels and the Commanders' latest impressive performance?
Last week I asked you if you might take Jaden Daniels as the number one rest of season quarterback,
Yeah.
and you said no. Or have you rethought that at all? I mean, I would still go with Lamar, I
Yep.
think.
The two guys I
But
said that we had over him were Allen and Lamar. Yeah.
yeah, would you take Jaden Daniels over Josh Allen right now?
God.
I would actually. I would.
God.
Yeah. Too hard.
No, it's just I didn't. The difference is I did not expect him to run at this level. Like he looks like Lamar when he runs.
And
Like
even like after he ran a bunch in week one, and Dan Quinn was like, "We can't let him run that much," and he's
yeah,
still out there getting double-digit carries every week.
yeah, for sure. Other note I had on Commanders was Brian Robinson played through a knee injury here. Sounded like maybe he should have sat out. He scored 2 touchdowns, but they didn't even play him in the second half very much because they wanted him healthy for this week 6 game against the Ravens. So yeah, Brian Thomas is definitely dealing with it. Brian Robinson's definitely dealing with a knee injury, but sounds like he's going to be okay for this Ravens game. All right, let's move it over to the AFC now. Start with the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, Lamar Jackson was absolutely unreal as the Ravens put 41 points on the Bengals in overtime win, 348 pass yards and 4 touchdowns for Lamar. Plus, he ran 12 times for 55 yards, made some crazy plays escaping in the pocket. I mean, this is how Lamar won MVP last year, Evan. I think Mahomes is the favorite right now, given what the Chiefs' record is, Mahomes' reputation and everything. But man, you could argue Lamar's insanely valuable once again. What do you think of Ravens win in Cincy?
Yeah, as noted by Ted Seth of Sumer Sports, an analytics website, uh, Lamar Jackson is generating more EPR per play this year than he did last year when he won MVP. There have only been 6 dudes all time who have won MVP 3 times. I mean, I think Lamar Jackson actually should be the favorite. I don't think that Patrick Mahomes has even been a top 5 quarterback this year.
Yep. Um, Other notes from the Ravens. So I know that Mark Andrews finally scored fantasy points. He had 4 catches for 55 yards. I thought this was the most concerning usage of the year for Mark Andrews because I was like, well, maybe when they get into really throw heavy scripts, Mark Andrews will play more and have a bigger role. They drop back Lamar Jackson 47 times, which is the Ravens do not want to drop back Lamar Jackson 47 times. Mark Andrews still only ran 22 routes. Isaiah Likely 34 and Charlie Kolar 6. And Likely and Kolar were both more productive than Andrews. So if you're only going to run 47% of the routes on a day where Lamar has to drop back 47 times, it's really concerning for me on the Mark Andrews stuff. Also on Derrick Henry. He ran hot here. Lamar had a touchdown, a rushing touchdown, reviewed and called back the 1-inch line. Ravens don't tush push, so Derrick Henry scores there. Then it goes to overtime, and Derrick Henry gets a 51-yard run to finish with a solid line. But yeah, Derrick Henry certainly ran a little bit hot here, but that's what Derrick Henry does. Evan, anyways, any more thoughts on Mark Andrews, Derrick Henry, and any of the Ravens stuff?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I thought this was actually maybe Derrick Henry's quietest game
Yeah.
of the year, but he got the touchdown and the 51-yard run in overtime. Rashad Bateman has been a little bit of a factor this year. I like to see the big game from Zay Flowers, who hadn't really had that early in the season. Just a reminder that we have that in his bag. But yeah, I mean, this was one of the things that I got right was the Ravens Bengals over.
Yeah.
And that was That was in the books by like the start of the fourth quarter.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Some more potential shootouts.
Hitting on the bets,
And by the way, Ravens, like everyone's throwing on the Ravens. Like everybody's game plan against the Ravens is to get in there and throw and throw and throw. They get Jaden Daniels next, then Bucks, Browns, Broncos. So yeah.
Oh, one other note is that the Ravens, their offensive line, we had questions about them entering the season, and it looked bad early in the year. But they installed a second-round pick, Roger Rosengarten, at right tackle, and that's like been a really big help. And also, the film watchers are talking about Ronnie Stanley looks back to his old self And there were legitimate questions really over the last 2 years whether he was going to get back there, and it looks like he has.
All right, let's go to the Buffalo Bills. Bills fall to 3-2 as they lose this AFC showdown to the Texans. They ran the ball fine, but some really odd coaching stuff at the end of the game. I mean, they totally butchered the clock management and play calling at the very end of this game. But really, they couldn't throw the football the entire game. I mean, Josh Allen, 9 of 30 for 131 yards. No one on the team caught more than 2 balls. Maybe he was affected by Khalil Shakir being out more than I thought he would be. But yeah, somewhat concerning performance, I thought. Evan, what'd you think of Bills' game against the Texans?
Yeah, it was a combination of factors. I mean, it's always going to be a combination of factors when you have this bad of a result from such a good player in Josh Allen. And he only took 1 sack, but the Texans got a lot of pressure on him throughout the game. They hit him 9 times. And the Texans are a tough team to play against because they're generally pretty good at stopping the run, and they've got 2 stud bookend pass rushers in Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, and they can just make your life miserable. And I absolutely think that Khalil Shakir, his absence was felt because he's their guy that gets open and gets open quickly. And he has been, he's kind of a needle mover for their offense. I think they should go get Devontae Adams before the Jets get him. I think that would be an awesome connection for Josh Allen, but I don't even know if they're interested.
Yeah. Mac Hollins led this team in targets. That's not it. I mean, you can't have games where Mac Hollins leading you in targets. That's definitely not it. Does not get any easier for Bills offense. They play at the Jets. Big AFC East game Monday night. Bills at Jets.
Yeah, Mike Clay noted that actually the Jets, if the Jets win this game and they are at home against the Bills, then they can actually be in first place in the AFC East.
Yep.
A week after firing their head coach.
Yep. Let's go to the Bengals. So this game was eerily reminiscent to the 2021 Bengals-Ravens matchup where Burrow went off for 500-plus yards and 4 touchdowns. This time, Joe Burrow lights up the Ravens for 392 yards and 5 touchdowns. And it was pretty much all to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Clearly, Burrow likes playing against the Ravens here, has huge 2 absolutely outrageous games now. Bad news for them was Zach Moss sprained his ankle. Looked kind of bad, but he did come back in the game briefly, but didn't finish the game. So that's an injury that we're watching closely there on the Chase Brown stuff. But yeah, Evan, what do you think of Bengals' home overtime loss? Could not stop the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is just such a good fantasy situation with pretty much everybody healthy. They are starting to have some offensive line issues. They lost their starting right tackle Trent Brown to a ruptured patellar tendon already, and then Amarius Mims, their first-round pick, his backup, who's now starting at right tackle, he got carded. So I don't know what his status is going to be. But other than that, I mean, when all their playmakers are healthy, I mean they have an awesome offense.
Yeah,
and that's what we saw here. And I'd be very excited. And their defense is terrible. Like, I'd just be really excited to be an owner of Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, and now Chase Brown.
Yeah, Chase Brown ended up out carrying Zach Moss 12-9. In this game, Chase Brown also got 3 targets, one of which he scored on. So, yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Chase Brown play more. They still don't really trust him in pass protection, but just getting him more touches, I think, is certainly in the cards, especially with this Zach Moss injury.
Eric All, the rookie who we've talked a decent amount, the rookie tight end for the Bengals, he played more snaps than Drew Sample and Mike Gesicki, but Gesicki is running the most routes.
Yep.
When Gesicki's in there, he's in there to run routes.
Yep. Let's go to the Browns. So another week, another face plant from Deshaun Watson and this Browns offense. This time, they can't do anything against one of the NFL's worst defenses in the Commanders. Even though they got some offensive line help back here, Deshaun Watson still just 125 yards passing. Now, after the game, Kevin Stefanski was adamant that he's sticking with Deshaun Watson, even though they're 1-4, even though Watson is among the bottom 3 in like every passing data category. Everybody wants to see them move on from Deshaun Watson. Doesn't seem like they're going to do it. Failing against the Commanders, though, Evan, I actually thought that they would have some success against this Commanders defense, and they did not. What do you think of Brown's latest failure?
Um, man, I think it's the owner that's pushing this with Deshaun Watson, because there was a report or something coming out of the second half that Jameis Winston was warming up, and then he didn't go in, and you wonder, like, did Jimmy Haslam get on the phone and be like, hey, no, we ain't doing that,
Yeah,
I
we're
just
not flushing my 230 million.
yeah, I mean, which has already been flushed.
Right.
But and then I don't really know what the rhyme or reason week to week. What are they doing at running back? And I think it's like ultimately it's starting to reflect poorly because people don't have answers for what is really going on there. It's starting to reflect poorly on the GM and the head coach.
Yeah.
I mean, and the coach has won what, coach of the year twice or something. Andrew Berry is one of the smartest GMs I think in the league, but it's cliche and it's boring, but it starts at the top. And when you have a dysfunctional owner, you have a dysfunctional organization, and it's showing up on the field. I mean, they're one of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah, really bad. Really, really bad. I was happy to see David Njoku back. Thought he looked good, but then he gets hurt again. So he came into this game with an ankle issue, goes down with a knee injury. Now he's headed for an MRI. So hits keep coming. They should trade Amari Cooper. They really should. The trade deadline is the Tuesday after week 9. There's a lot of speculation they're going to deal Amari Cooper. They'd be crazy not to. They could probably get a reasonable pick for Amari Cooper, and they might as well. I mean, they might as well.
Deshaun Watson is on pace to take 88 sacks, which would be a league record by like a lot.
Yeah.
Jonathan Allen, the Commanders defensive tackle, came out after the game and said he thinks that there's something going on with Deshaun Watson mentally out there.
Clearly.
Which, I mean, I think that we can like all agree that on that. Like I don't think that he wants to be out there. I really don't think that he wants to play.
At Philly, tough place to play for sure coming up this week for the Browns. Let's go to the Broncos. Broncos moved to 3-2 with a home win over the Devontae Adams-less Raiders. Bo Nix got into it on the sideline with Sean Payton during this game after he missed Troy Franklin. But looked all water under the bridge now. And Nix actually played really well, 19 of 27, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns, no INT. Of course, you're going to get a lot of running back targets, right? Javonte Williams led the team in targets with 6. Jaleel McLaughlin got 4 targets, scored on 1. They lead the team in receiving. Like, the fantasy stuff is really hard to come by here, but at least they're playing good or decent ball. Evan, what do you think of Broncos' latest win, this time home against the Raiders?
Yeah, and also Tyler
Bidet.
Tyler Bidet went on IR, so he's not going to be back for a while. Javonte Williams is starting to look pretty good. He was awful to begin the season. He's strung together some really nice games here lately. He led him in receiving in this game, and I think that he's back to the point where you can consider playing him.
No,
they're facing the Chargers this week.
The only thing I'd say is not that it should matter too much, but Audric Estime is eligible to come off of IR this week. I don't know if they'll actually activate him and play him, but he's eligible to be at least. All right. By the way, Greg Dulcich was a healthy scratch in this game. It's just Jover for that guy. He's like a worse version of Mike Gesicki, sorry. All right. Let's go to the Texans. So good big win for the Texans here over the Bills, 23-20. It was costly though, at least to me. I mean, I can't face any more wide receiver injuries that I'm heavy on, Evan, but Nico Collins, the best wide receiver in the NFL, maybe the best fantasy wide receiver in the NFL this side of Justin Jefferson, catches a 67-yard touchdown on his 5th route of the game and pulls his hamstring. He's listed week to week. It's just sad, man. I thought Rashee Rice, Malik Neighbors, Nico Collins were the 3 best picks in the draft. And now all 3 have been hurt. Evan, any thoughts on Texans from this game and Nico Collins stuff going forward?
Yeah, it sounds like Nico Collins is going to miss 2 games. The guy who jumped in for him was Xavier Hutchinson.
Yep.
6'2", 203 pounds. He was a 6th-round pick last year. We'll see. I mean, CJ Stroud is so good that he can elevate guys, but that's someone to keep in mind. again, I think it's going to be a short-term absence for Nico Collins, but Xavier Hutchinson is going to get some opportunities.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, they got to get Tank Dell going.
Right.
People are complaining in the streets about Tank Dell. He did catch all of his targets in this game, though, for 38 yards.
Yeah. A couple things. I'm surprised that Hutchinson, who ran 28 routes on 42 Stroud dropbacks in this game, is so far ahead of Robert Woods, who ran 8, and John Mechie, who ran 1. I mean, I don't know that Hutchinson's going to like hang on to that, with a full week to prepare. Maybe they do something different. So I'm watching that situation at least. The Tank Dell stuff is scary, man, but no Nico Collins. Like, I know I've said it every week this year, but like, this is the time for Tank Dell to get going now. Damian Pierce seemed close in this game, ended up not playing. Joe Mixon, though, I mean, he's been out for a while, man, and with like no details whatsoever. I did want to note, though, that Dare Gunawable played ahead of Cam Akers a bunch here, even in a leading game script. So, yeah. Oh, I did make a bet last week, Evan. CJ Stroud, I know you're on him. You probably have a better number than me, but I just wanted to try to bet against the Chiefs a little bit where I thought their numbers were inflated. So I took the Stroud 13-1 to be the MVP, which was in Ryan's article. So now we're Stroud MVP brothers in arms. So, yeah.
Love it.
Love it. Let's go to the Colts. Super interesting, man. I find this super interesting. The Colts get a big jolt in their pass game because 39-year-old Joe Flacco got to start. And Joe Flacco just does what he does. He threw it 44 times, 359 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He started 7 games over the last 2 years with the Browns and now the Colts. He's gone over 300 yards in 6 of them in a league where quarterbacks are struggling so badly to go over 300 yards. Joe Flacco is doing it almost every time out. And it makes watching Anthony Richardson throw so much harder to know that this is what the offense can be. I know they have to go back to starting Anthony Richardson. I would go back and play Anthony Richardson when he's healthy. But I get the people that are out there that are saying maybe Joe Flacco gives them a better chance to win. Evan, what was your reaction to Flacco's latest performance here, this time in a wild loss to the Jaguars?
Yeah, he's actually played really well for an extended period of time, going back to even when he was with the Jets. And then we know he balled out with Cleveland last year. He won Comeback Player of the Year with Cleveland, didn't he?
Correct.
Yeah, and then he plays really well right here. I mean, and it's funny, he can move. I mean, he's like a fine wine. He's getting better with age. And he had a 21-yard run and he looked all right. He knows how to play the freaking game, and he got everybody involved here. I mean, geez, Alec Pierce, by the way, goodness gracious, he's on pace for like 1,200 yards or something.
I know.
He's got 5 catches of 40+ yards. Are you ready to take him seriously? Are you ready to take Alec Pierce seriously?
Not really. It's going to be so volatile, but I hear you.
Yeah.
He did run 40 routes compared to 12 for A.D. Mitchell, even though A.D. Mitchell caught 4 balls in this game. Again, 40 routes for Pierce compared to 12 for A.D. Mitchell. It's just the Pierce stuff. He just catches bombs, man. And, God.
His ADOT is 27.1 yards, and the next closest is like 20.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I mean, he can run. I think he ran 4.34 coming out of college. Like, he can absolutely run.
If you were coaching the Colts and you just wanted to win one game, who would you start, Flacco or Anthony Richardson?
I mean, Flacco.
Right. And the problem is, if you have a long-term vision for the Colts, you're not going to win the Super Bowl with Flacco. So, like, you have to find out if Anthony Richardson can play and sustain health. So, I think Anthony Richardson will be back under center as soon as he's cleared. But we'll see. For my Josh Downs bags, I certainly want Joe Flacco in there. 12 targets for Josh Downs. He's like legit good, man. I mean, Josh Downs can really play. So
yeah. Trey Sermon had 16 touches, 41 snaps.
Yeah.
Tyler Goodson, 8 touches, 29 snaps. It's just a usage thing with Trey Sermon. And he did fall into the end zone, and he caught 6 passes.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I did not think – that's one of the reasons I was kind of out on Trey Sermon. I was like, well, how many passes can this guy catch? 6. They
do have a really tough matchup coming up against Tennessee. Tennessee's got some studs on the interior, and the Colts are dealing with Ryan Kelly, their starting center, has been out, and then they lost Will Fries, their starting right guard for the season. So they got some issues on the interior all of a sudden. Their offensive line has been really good to this point.
Yeah, not a good time for that when you're facing the Titans next. Let's go to the Kansas City Chiefs. So, of course, no Rashee Rice, who is now officially or almost officially out for the season. Certainly safe to drop. No Isaiah Pacheco. No Marquise Brown, of course. No problem for the Chiefs. Easy win on Monday night over the Saints, 26-13. I think that, two big stories. The first one is the running back situation. Kareem Hunt took control of this backfield late in week 4, as we talked about it, and extended his lead here in week 5. 53 snaps for Kareem Hunt in this game compared to 21 for Perine, 16 for Steele. 28 opportunities for Kareem Hunt compared to 5 for Steele, 2 for Perine. CEH was not active here once again. I don't know, man. Like, the way they're going to play, Kareem Hunt could be a really good asset. And it also pains me because I liked Isaiah Pacheco this season, and Isaiah Pacheco in this role would have gone absolutely nuts. But yeah, Evan, what do you think about Kareem Hunt right now?
It's wild how these dudes that were literally out of the league yesterday come in and they're like performing for the Chiefs. Kareem Hunt and Juju Smith-Schuster. Yeah. Kareem Hunt had 27 carries, none longer than 8 yards in this game, but he's he's churning out yards. I mean, he's getting a lot of first downs. I mean, they trust him. I mean, he had 28 touches in this game. I don't know how long like his body is going to hold up doing this, but I mean, no question in the short term. He's a locked in fantasy starter.
Yep. Okay. Wide receiver stuff. First full game without Rashee Rice.
Also, Carson Steele fumbled again.
Yeah. 44 Mahomes dropbacks here in this game. The routes were Xavier Worthy 35, Justin Watson 31, Juju 29, Mecole Hardman just 6, and Sky Moore 0. So they went with a ton of 2 tight end sets, a ton of 3 tight end sets, and even during the broadcast, if you watch the game, the broadcast was like, they have 4 tight ends out there now a few times. I mean, they are going to some real creative stuff. One of the ways they scored was a shotgun snap to Travis Kelce handoff for a touchdown to Xavier Worthy. Like, there's some wild stuff going on here, but that's what the Chiefs do. Evan, do you think this Juju Smith-Schuster performance from last night is sticky? How aggressive would you be on him on the waiver wire?
Man, I mean, I'd try to get him. If you would ask me about Juju Smith-Schuster last week, I would have laughed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a ton of opportunity there. He's got a great quarterback. I know I said that I don't think that Mahomes has been a top 5 quarterback on the season so far. I still think he's the best quarterback in the NFL.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the opportunity's there.
Yeah. So they're not going to always get 44 Mahomes dropbacks. Juju is not always going to be the one that hits. They'll have Justin Watson games. They'll have Xavier Worthy games. But yeah, Juju certainly looked great last night. The big thing, though, that's going to be sticky is the Kelce stuff, which we talked about last week. Just double-fisted. Lose Rashee Rice. And then also I had the Kelce fade going, and now Kelce's going to go nuts. You saw it last night. I mean, he's running routes in the same exact spot where Rashee Rice was running routes, ends up with 10 targets and looked good. So, and Evan's girl, Tay was there cheering as well.
Yeah, Tay-Tay's watching him again. Oh, man, she was looking good up there, too.
All right, let's go to the Chargers. Chargers will come out of their bye to face those plucky Broncos on Sunday. Was certainly a good time for the Chargers bye. I thought Justin Herbert's right foot was really banged up with multiple issues. Offensive line was banged up also now. So I think they'll get some of those guys back. Big thing for me to watch post-bye on the Chargers is the post-bye rookie bump for Kimani Vidal. Gus Edwards has been one of the worst running backs in the league. We know about J.K. Dobbins' injury history. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic here, but I still like the idea of Kimani Vidal late in the season. We'll see if the bye gives him a chance to get active on game days. Evan, anything for you on Chargers as they come out of their bye?
I will just be checking out this offensive line situation. Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater need these guys back.
Yeah.
That's, especially against a defense like Denver. Denver has been so good. But that's what I'm keeping my eye on.
Let's go to the Las Vegas Raiders. So They start the game with Gardner Minshew, and he starts hot. He had a 57-yard touchdown pass to Brock Bowers, which wasn't really a great throw by Gardner Minshew. He kind of threw it up for grabs, and Bowers, being the beast that he is, head tops the defensive back, runs into the end zone. But whatever, they got out to a 10-0 lead behind Minshew, and then it just got ugly. Minshew throws an interception midway through the third quarter. They're down 20-10. Pierce says, "I've seen enough." He goes to AOC, and AOC predictably can't get it done either. So, look, man, you don't have a quarterback. It's really hard to win in this league. They need quarterback help so badly, which is another reason that I would trade Davante Adams, which I think they're going to do here. But yeah, Evan, what do you think of Raiders' latest meltdown?
They're screwed. They're just totally screwed. Not a fun, with the exception of Brock Bowers and maybe a little Trey Tucker, and Trey Tucker was really quiet in this game. Not a fun fantasy offense at all.
Yeah. I mentioned that Davante Adams trade. They're like publicly leaking now that they want it done, and they want it done sooner rather than later. So I mean, this is not. I don't think this is going to be repaired. Davante Adams will be playing for someone else by week 9 or week 10. I think is really, really likely. And of course, Jets and Saints are the two, I guess, teams that he said he wanted to play for. Bowers, as Evan mentioned, now on pace for 95 catches, over 1,000 yards. If it wasn't for Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors having incredible rookie years also, Brock Bowers would be no doubt rookie of the year. And the last note I have, we start to think about what are the Raiders going to look like without Davante Adams for the rest of the season. Jacoby Myers had a 24% target share here, 42% target share in week 4. He's not explosive at all. And given the route tree and the quarterback situation, I'm not like excited about it, but I could see Jacoby Myers averaging like 7-8 targets per game the rest of the year. And that's going to be somewhat valuable to some people.
Absolutely.
Let's go to the Dolphins. Dolphins situation just depresses me, man. They trot Tyler Huntley out there again. I mean, when Tyler Huntley starts, I can barely even feel good about starting Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle in season long. And then on top of that, Devon Achane goes out there and gets concussed. But, they won the game, which says a lot about the state of the Patriots. But yeah, Evan, what do you think of Dolphins' latest game without Tua?
Yeah, it's just the bottom shouldn't fall out on the offense like this to this extent. I don't think they did run the ball well in this game, which is not something that they have been doing particularly well since they lost Tua. But Jalen Wright had a really nice game. He looks like a keeper.
Yeah, and Raheem Mostert was back in 19 carries, 80 yards. Jalen Wright is just going to be one injury away. You can check the one injury away article on the site for how we have Jalen Wright ranked against some of the other one injury away guys. The big news, though, Evan, is the Tua update. So the NFL said last week that they will not have a role in Tua Tagovailoa's potential return. In other words, the NFL is not going to step in and say, Tua, you can play or you can't play or whatever. He has patient autonomy, they call it. So we'll see, man. Every sign that I've seen is Tua wants to keep playing. And so at this point, I'm actually expecting him. They have a bye in week 6. I expect him to be back by week 8 or week 9 on Tua, but we'll see. But at this point, that's kind of the way that I'm playing it. Let's go to the Steelers. Sunday night game. They lose that nail biter to the Cowboys at the last second. And it takes one game. I mean, one bad Justin Fields performance for people to already say, let's get Russ Wilson in there. And Mike Tomlin threw some gas on the fire by saying Russ is going to be ready to go. He's going to operate as the backup this week, and he's ready to play. And, we're not going to name Justin Fields a starter for the rest of the year. So, yeah, bad game for Justin Fields, Evan, but I don't think it's like the end of the world. What do you think of Steelers' last-second loss to the Cowboys?
Yeah, not the end of the world, but I mean, if he strings 2 or 3 of those together, then I think that they could definitely start to think about Russell Wilson. Something weird is going on with George Pickens.
Yes.
They pulled back his snaps. Did you see he grabbed the dude by the face mask?
Yeah.
One of the Cowboys DBs. Did you see that?
I didn't see that, but he's clearly like something's going on big time.
Yeah, Jordan Lewis. He like grabbed him by the face mask and just, I don't know, man. And it's crazy because he's so freaking talented, right?
Yeah.
But the book on him always was that there's something going wrong with him upstairs.
There's cut-ups of him online you can find of his routes, and like he doesn't look like he's running hard at all. He only ran 20 routes on 30 Justin Fields dropbacks. Mike Tomlin's comment after the game was, we did want to cut Pickens reps a little bit in an effort to get higher quality play. I mean, what does that mean? Like he's too tired to like run the full complement of routes? Like there's something weird going on there. And you have Arthur Smith there also, who clearly doesn't care that George Pickens is talented. He'll play anyone. He doesn't care. I mean, they got Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin out there. Like, what do you expect out of Justin Fields? You know, like he's still going to take a bunch of sacks. He's got Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin out there. Like, yeah, is what it is. At the
Yeah,
Raiders next, though.
And the running game hasn't been very good.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be Arthur Smith's calling card. Najee just can't get it going really at all. He does have the Raiders next. We'll see. But Jalen Warren and Cordero Patterson are both going to miss week 6.
Yeah, not a good sign. They've already been ruled out here ahead of week 6. Doesn't sound like either of them are that close. Last team today is the Tennessee Titans. They will come out of their bye in week 6 for one of the best possible matchups, a home game against the Colts. The question is just that quarterback. I mean, they have vowed to stick with Will Levis, even though Mason Rudolph led them to their only win in week 4. They have the Levis shoulder thing as an excuse if they want it. If I was just trying to win games, and I'm not saying that's like the only goal, but if I was just trying to win games, I'd probably start Mason Rudolph over Will Levis, even though I think Mason Rudolph sucks. Evan, what do you Will Levis is just too mistake prone. I mean, that's it. Like he can be better than it's just so many mistakes. But yeah, Evan, any thoughts on Titans as they come out of their bye?
Yeah, I just think it comes down to, the Titans, maybe there's still a glimmer of hope that Will Levis can be their guy, and they probably know that Mason Rudolph is not going to be their guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if I wanted to win a game right now, then I would play Mason Rudolph over him.
And I think we'll see both guys make starts the rest of this year.
Agree.
I
think it's just a matter of time before they pull the ripcord on Will Levis.
Yep, but certainly a good spot here for Levis if he does indeed start home against the Colts. It's not going to get much better than that for Will Levis and the Titans. All right, that is going to do it for this team by team look ahead of week 6. Appreciate you all being here. If you're not yet subscribed to our YouTube, it is indeed free. We continue to put out free content on here. We'd appreciate it if you do indeed hit that subscribe button. For Evan, for producer Luke, for producer Ryan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.